maybe that's where the mindset is. Maybe this was a map that they haven't tried yet. So if this is the map that they haven't tried yet, that could be where the logic comes from.
I mean, for what it's worth as well, like a best of 7, if they're going to win this, it's probably going to go 6 or 7 maps, and there's only 8 maps in the pool, right? So you have to play them all at some point. So no harm in trying them out for Not Binks Goon, and of course, Boy Franklin playing the Warrior on the side of the Turbo Cleave. Now, we'll have to see how they do play it, because one of the things you had touched on a little bit in the last game, Dill, is that they do have a few target choices here. We saw them hitting Nooks a little bit more, because basically if they hit him and stun him, he can't peel them, which is the biggest problem they've been having anyways. So it's been making a lot of sense, and they're actually opening up on him, and they get the trinket early on.
Yeah, and also, I think you saw more damage by going onto the Warrior, because if you're ignoring a Warrior the entire game, he's going to sit in battle stance. So forcing him in D stance, reducing the damage that he has, I think that those are really crucial to do, plus the same thing that we just said. Because if he's going on the Ellie Shaman, honestly, they're not stopping that much damage. Like, he has so many schools to cast from, and that was something we were just talking about before the games, that you're not shutting him down too much. And at that point, really the best person to shut down is the Warrior if you want to actually do that. But now they're going to get that early pressure onto Iroh right there. They're using the Lust there, not committing the Battle Cry or the Doom Winds there. So I do like how they always tend to try to hold that and try to force out a little bit more, make people kind of panic. But I like that Voltrak actually gave it respect and realized that it was just Lust, and he didn't trade up the Iron Bark, which is something that people sometimes will make the mistake for. They actually are being really aware that these cooldowns are being split up, and instead decides to hold on to that cooldown and wait until the real damage comes out, which is either going to be from the Doom Winds and the Battle Cry, or, you know, a different combination of those being used together.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the big things to note as well is that Volchok and the Thundercleave on Gronks are actually playing on the Horde side, so they don't have that second trinket. So if they do catch Nooks in a stun, they can definitely kill him. This is your true battle for Azeroth, Horde versus Alliance battle here, gentlemen. We have Binks and Goon playing on the Alliance side, and we have Iroh and Volchok trying to slay them off and defend Lordron for the Horde. We've got a very good job coming out of them thus far. They're doing a great job with Iroh and Nooks just playing this defensive game to perfection, but they did force the trinket there on Volchok, another big defensive cooldown, and now they do have the opportunity once again, Bloodlust available to either swap onto Iroh or Nooks and get some offensive pressure going.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting him low. I like that they have a little bit more consistent damage. I think this is the ideal situation, is you have them both rotting, and now Voltrak's in a situation where it's a lot harder for him to keep them alive, because then if they can get a go where someone's low, that's where things are going to be really favorable. It kind of is harder to get that kill if you start your setup with all your cooldowns and they're at full HP, right? Like, you want to kind of have your target whittled down, but unfortunately they are going to be able to recover. They're going to go for that Lust right now, going for the Stormbolt onto Nuxie right there, trying to do some damage into him, popping the Battle Cry without Lust, doing a lot of damage, forcing the parry from Nuxie, so that's going to be really good for them. They want to get that cooldown out of the way, but they still have Nuxie's trinkets, so a little bit unfortunate that they weren't able to get every single cooldown from them, but still, they did have a lot of damage. But now the damage is going down to Goon back here. He's in that Stormbolt. They get the half clone onto Not Binks right there on the way. The Crane, so that cooldown is completely negated. This is going to put them in such a bad spot. I think he's not going to be able to recover out of that bash. He needs to probably use that Cocoon. Yeah, they had to use a Cocoon wall pretty much every single cooldown right there. That's just a really rough situation to be in at that point.
Yeah, I mean, Gronk's forcing a ton of defensive cooldowns out of Unhandsome Men in that push. But on the flip side, they've also been trading out pretty evenly. Volchok had to use his Bark Skin, Ironbark, and Trinkets. There's a potential opening there. We see Not Binks pushing in, trying to get the stun. Unfortunately, DR there, I'd like to see him maybe just save it, because they do have that opening. Looks like they're going to actually target him anyways. He blinks away, should be fine for now, just sitting in the back line. Nooks now, of course, has his Trinket up, as you mentioned. He's not so much of a target, but he doesn't have that die by the sword. So I really like that they're kind of leaving Iroh alone in this game. They're trying to spread out to avoid any big damage coming in from Stormkeepers and stuff like that. But they're trying to get those swaps between Volchok and Nooks, and it seems to be working pretty well for them. If they can get one more good go onto Volchok, they can force his Trinket, and then of course Nooks still without that die by the sword could be a really good opening for this team.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the main thing that they really just need to watch out for is just not just opening themselves up into another opportunity where they get caught in those clone chains, right? Which just happened there. I think they need to cover the way the Crane's a little bit better, because that's something that Volchok's been taking an advantage of, and I think that can put them really far behind, especially if they want to kind of go with Binks at the same time, right? If they want to be using his damage as well for that go, they have to be really careful that they're going to peel that, and I think that's how they're going to get the kill. I think they can't just do it with the Warrior and enhanced damage alone. I actually think that they need their Mistweaver with them to finish these targets off.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that they've been debating it a lot, right? Because Goon's sometimes been using the Doom Winds with the Bloodlust to like try all in, and sometimes he's been splitting them up. But I mean, there definitely comes a point where you force that opening. Like, let's look right now. Volchok doesn't have Trinket, Nux doesn't have Trinket. They have the opening. I'd love to see them just save and wait for that Doom Fury, and it looks like that's what they're doing. They have, of course, Vinx has the Way of the Crane, they have the Bloodlust, and they have that Doom Winds momentarily in 10 seconds on Goon. They could go for that all-in strategy, but it looks like they're going to commit right now. They're popping it in, trying to get the kill here. Volchok, though, just going to train out the Barkskin. It's just not enough damage once again.
I don't like them using that leg sweep there, because I think that they could have waited. That leg sweep has too long of a cooldown, in my opinion, to just give up like that. Now, if they have the in-cap leg sweep fear, like we just were talking about, that will win the game for them. They actually could have won the game, and I think that might have been a mistake and something that they're not really being as conscious about as they should be. And that probably could have been their opportunity to win, because we notice it. And it's something that you might not notice if you're in the game. Like, that it might not be a smart idea to go for that in-cap leg sweep. You know, you just see the leg sweep up, so it's like, oh, well, I in-capped them, I might as well follow it up. But I think that actually threw away a possible opportunity, because now they're going to go for it. But now there's no... Oh, they actually do have the leg sweep back up. Okay, I was wrong. So now they do have that damage there, but they're going to get the die by the sword up. So, I mean, maybe a little bit earlier, you would have had that die by the sword up. I think that was the main thing. So
yeah, I agree. I think Volchok had the back skin. Nux didn't really have the die by the sword or the trinket, so he might have been the opening. But regardless, that's how the game's played out. It's definitely difficult, right? Like, I think one of the things Gronk's been doing very well is preemptively seeing where this Turbo Cleave wants to go with their next burst, and then playing around it very well. So Volchok once again trades out the Iron back here. We see die by the sword down, and actually a bit of damage coming out onto Iroh. And we can have a little look at the situation. And once again, those big defensive cooldowns are largely down for Nuxie, so I'd love to see them go back over onto him. Goon, of course, has that Bloodlust, and Doom Winds coming up in about 15. I love the fact that they've been starting to combine those cooldowns a little bit, and now that we're in dampening, like, they could totally kill Nux through healing. I could really see that being a thing, and their cooldowns are up in just 5 seconds.
Yeah, and they're getting that damage onto him, and it looks like they're also punishing Volchok a little bit, and they're just trying to get him as low as possible. I mean, that's a really good situation to be in for them, I feel like. I like them kind of hitting him a bit, but the only thing is he's not playing that Bim and Vigor, so it's not like it really does too much by hitting Volchok. You know, he's put himself in a situation that he knows they could potentially just swap to him and kill him and make it really hard for them to recover. So them swapping him when he is defender really doesn't do too much, I feel like. I think it almost ends up being a waste, unless they can just maintain this pressure onto him.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how much uptime they can get. Volchok definitely dropping a little bit low right now, down to 30%. Does not have that bark skin, but able to blink away. We see the rally, the damage coming out of this warrior here, as we are getting a fair bit. But honestly, Nuxie just able to stay in line of sight of Volchok, who's just freely casting heals. Iroh, of course, standing protector, as he's been doing the entire tournament long. And his team's just completely fine. And looking at mana, Vinx was able to get a drink a little bit earlier in the game, but now they're getting the swap over onto Volchok. Does have the PvP trinket available. No peels coming out, though, per se, as we do see now the Hex coming in from Goon and the Disarm over onto Free Franklin. And I mean, again, it's really nice play coming out of Iroh and Nux. We don't give them enough credit for it. I mean, we give them a lot of credit, but they deserve even more. They've been playing so well defensively. Volchok as well, with those Ironbacks, always at the right time, just keeping his team alive. And Goon, honestly, is feeling the brunt of it. We see Vinx dropping low on mana, Goon not being able to stabilize for a little while now. Does have that Bloodlust, he's looking to get aggressive, but who can he hit at this point in time?
You know, the one thing that might be okay, though, with them hitting Volchok a little bit there, I just started thinking of is, when they do that, they kind of prevent clones a bit. So maybe that's advantageous for them. At least that way they don't get cloned, because that's been a big problem on a lot of those Way of the Cranes. They've been getting shut down just because of that. So hitting the jury prevents that from happening. But still, Iroh is just popping that Stormkeeper, and he is just, you know, using those chain lightning, spamming as much damage as possible onto everyone. There's a Way of the Crane up, and there's no Lust being used yet. But I mean, the Way of the Crane's over, and Gubak's surely going to go down. There's no way he survives. As they trinket out of that, they get hit half clone. I mean, that's the game right there. There's no way you live at that point.
Yeah, there comes a point where you just can't survive any longer, and that's been the theme of this matchup, right? The Thunder Cleave definitely under a fair bit of pressure, and I mean, a lot of that does come down to things on the Mistweaver Monk, like you're saying. When he can contribute the Way of the Crane, it is a lot of damage, even after the slight hot fixes, but if they can't get that clean connection, and honestly, the main reason they can't is because of great peels from Gronks. Gronks are able to just play that long game, and of course, get the kill eventually. The execution from Nuxie on point, impeccable, as always, and that will be the series going 2-0. And of course, it's a best of 7, but you're still only 2 games away from losing it out.
Right.
Gronks are poised to prove that they are the best team in this region right now.
Yeah, absolutely. They are doing such a great job in this series, I feel like.
Yeah,
I mean, they've been maybe I believe it was Unix you talked to, right? Maybe he made the call that they were the scariest team, and I mean, so far, definitely looks like that. They already in the finals are 2-0 already. They've barely lost any games in any of their series. They are dominating so far. So
yeah, how many games have they lost? I think it's just the one, right? And it was to this team. I think
no, they
one
lost
game.
one to someone else, I believe.
Oh yeah, they lost one to gold as well. Okay.
Yep.
So they did lose two in totals, but they've got an almost flawless record, right? Certainly in series,
Yeah.
they've been through the upper bracket. They've had close individual games, but the overall series have felt pretty one-sided. Gronks, and
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you remember. Like, you got to take a look at the history of this region, right? Gronks were the first team to go from ANZ to the North America regionals, and they beat those big teams. They beat WizK. They lost so narrowly to Sea-Doo, and what was a super unlucky series. I think they met Juxie's team as well. 3 big North American teams, and they almost qualified through that region. And North America, I think it's fair to say, is considered like one of the strongest 2 regions right now, like there with Europe. So they're the 2 big regions, and if you're contesting on that level, it really shows the growth of ANZ, and that's why I'm loving watching Eli play it on this elemental shaman, because I mean, he's brought in another component to this roster that you could really see them challenging the North American teams, at least, if not the European teams, come BlizzCon.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they're improving, and honestly, as these teams get better too, probably make in a way kind of.
Yeah, I mean, this is the
better.
first cup out of 4, right? Like, this is their program starting, so you get the feeling like we're going to be doing these till July. I think like the July is the final cup where we'll decide those teams to the regionals, and then they're going to be prepping, for their LAN, which will be in September. That's going to be in the new expansion, Battle for Azeroth, which I'm very excited we can announce now. That'll be in the new expansion, and then they'll be playing against teams from Taiwan and Korea, and like by then they should be really well versed in what they're doing going into BlizzCon. And of course, all these teams want to be that one team that represents the region, but I mean, it's tough competition this year. It's really difficult stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I actually think that them being on the same ladder as NA also, if these teams are improving more too, that also goes hand in hand. You get more competition on NA too at the same time, and then both of those going forward, the more competition in general just makes people better. And I mean, that's the thing that I think has made Europe really strong for a long time, is that there's just so many good teams that it makes every other team better when you have that many people competing against each other. Yeah, basically the talent breeds that talent too. So now with more Australian regions or more Australian teams, that just makes the region better too.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Australians are going to do America's a little bit of a favor. I mean, that of course even spills over into Latin America as well. So there's a few different regions affected, and these groups of these regions is definitely going to help North America as well. So definitely watching these teams. But we are seeing a composition swap here coming out of Unhandsome Men. They've been playing, of course, that Turbo Cleave a fair bit. They're deciding to bring out Fresca once again on that Windwalker Monk. It's a matchup we did see in the first series as well. And it was a bit more threatening as well. And this is the first time I think we've seen Black Record today. Am I right, Dom?
Yes. Okay. Unhandsome Men. Unhandsome Men, right? That's their name, right? Enhanced Men.
Enhancement Men.
I think that's the pun. Enhancement.
Maybe if we say it a million times, we can't say it right. But it looks like the game is started. Fresky and Goon looking to get the swaps. Now, one of the things that I really like about Fresca coming out is that they can actually swap to Volshock much more now. Like, Windwalker has a lot more mobility. They can get the stuns, and they can really be much more unpredictable, which is going to make Volshock's life even harder than it was.
Oh yeah, now they're going for the big O here, giving that us onto Fresca right now, trying to do a lot of damage with that Storm Earth and Fire, trying to get a lot of pressure onto Voltrak or Iroh, but it really just isn't going to be followed up too much. Now they're going to have that Way the Crane being popped by Vinx, trying to keep his team top, and it looks like they're just trying to focus on Iroh, who has no wall left, and they do have the Touch of Death from Fresca, so if they do get a clean go here, things will be really scary. They do put the Touch of Death, and there's no Ironbark being used from Voltrak until now, but that's a lot of damage being used on Iroh. They have the Incap on Voltrak, looking to follow it up with a Cap. Great synergy from that team, forcing the Trinket out onto Voltrak, and I mean, that was a great setup. Still not forcing too many cooldowns, or sorry, not getting anyone super low, but that's forcing a lot of cooldowns on both sides, and that's what you want to see happening.
Yeah, it's really what you want to see. And I mean, Volchok having to trade out his trinket there. Iroh also doesn't have his. It could be real danger here. Iroh doesn't have Astral Shift either. No Iron Back. This could potentially be the game. Fresca doing a fair bit of damage here, but they just don't quite have enough crowd control onto Volchok. That was a really dangerous moment, but maybe they just didn't quite have the burst cooldowns. Bloodlust now available for Goon. They do have that option, but once again, they're going to have to wait until they have all of that crowd control. Windshear now into Volchok, into the stun, into the in-cap. Do they have the stun to follow that up? It could be the kill for Iroh. We see Fresca dropping low touch. That Trust of Karma offensively.
Iroh is so
be it. DR in cap.
He's dead.
And Iroh does fall. Crazy game. Fresca coming in fresh in that game 3. And suddenly we got a series on our hand, Dale.
yes, we do. I like the Windwalker enhanced comp. I actually think that is.
I really like that comp. Yeah.
I like
it's just
seeing
so
that
much
more
better
than
into the Resto Druid, right? Like the Resto Druid has such a handful, you've got to deal with the second range in cap, got to worry about being swapped to, it's even more burst damage. I mean, you lose a few peels without that warrior, like some of those annoying Disarms, but I mean, you can't say a Windwalker monk doesn't have utility.
yeah, exactly. I think it's a good pick in this situation. I think they need that burst to win the game, right? And they need that versatility. Plus, these games just are going on so long. I mean, we had seen them playing that before, and then they swapped to the turbo, I think, just to try to have that more consistent pressure, and I think to just try to have that finishing power with another warrior. But I can't remember if that even ended up being too much or enough to really win the game anyways. Or yeah, I don't know if they ended up winning a game with a warrior. I think they only had one with Windwalker Enhanced anyways.
Yeah, I think they were one. They went 2-1, like, or 1-2, I guess, with the Windwalker Enhanced. They lost the first one. Or maybe they won the first one, I actually remember, and then they lost 2. They were definitely 2-1 down, and then they swapped over to the turbo, so they felt, hey, okay, we'll give turbo a go, start of this series. But I definitely agree with you that I think this Windwalker just provides a lot of Fresca opportunities, right? Like fresh opportunities for him. And he just has a lot of, like, he just has a ton of burst, right? Like, it's what a Windwalker brings to the table. And since they were struggling to kill for 10 minutes, the fact that they can now kill in 2 minutes, it's pretty hard to turn that down.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, honestly, the strongest thing with this comp is just, I think, Touch of Death and Bloodlust Synergy, just because you get that extra little bit of damage into your Touch of Death that you normally cannot do with any other composition. So that actually works out really nicely, and that's something that can make things really, really scary for teams to deal with, because otherwise, I mean, you have a limited amount of globals you can get in that Touch of Death.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, now we've got a bit more of a series on our hands. It was starting to look like a Gronk's runaway show with them taking the first 2 games, but now we're at 2-1. It is a best of 7 series, everyone. So we're not going to be finishing the game at 3 wins, rather 4 wins is the goal for both of these teams. Fresco, Vinx, and Goon now have a bit of momentum on their side, but they've been taken to a rather big map. And this is actually something else we should point out, Dill. The fact that Asher Main's Fool was actually played out earlier in the series means that that's actually out of the map pool now. So this is the last really big map that Gronks have to choose from.
Yeah, so maybe the more that the series gets limited down on maps, like maybe Windwalker Enhanced just gets favored more and more, and maybe it could win the best of 7, where I think maybe it wouldn't have been possible the best of 3 as far as map picks go, right? Something similar to that. Sure. You get all the unfavorable picks out of the way.
You definitely get the feeling that if Unhandsome Men are to win this game, we're going the distance. I think we would be going to game 7. Gronks have the opportunity to run away with this one. This is their map choice. We're going to find out if they can do it. Of course, Iroh has been on fire, Nux as well, throughout this tournament, and they're the ones that need to survive this oncoming onslaught coming out of Fresco and Goon in game 4.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of like that early positioning that they got there. They just go for the one in cap onto Volchok, but I like that Vinx isn't just going to try to follow it up with an ACC. He's just going to push in there, and I like when he holds onto those in caps. Or sorry, not the in caps, the follow up leg sweep off the in cap. I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. It really does. That's one of the things we've talked about is like not just using your crowd control because it's available. You have to really be able to chain it, because if they don't have that much, like especially against Volchok when there's all these rotations of cooldowns. We see now the in-cap into the stun actually forces both trinkets once again. So another overlap coming out of Gronks, and that's because they committed everything, right? They used the Touch of Death, used the Bloodlust, and when they combine all these cooldowns, it causes panic on the other team. And Gronks once again trading out maybe too many cooldowns, you could argue. Ironbark will be back up in 10, but that's basically their only answer for the next offensive push.
Right, and that panic is an important part of this, and that's what I was saying too, with just holding on to that leg sweep right there. Vinx actually held onto his leg sweep because they didn't get a double leg sweep; they just leg swept separately right there. So doing that in that order, that means that, you know, you guarantee that you're going to get a double leg sweep. Essentially, you're going to cover 2 targets. You get an in cap on one guy, double leg sweep on the DPS, and then leg sweep on the healer who's just far away. And that's really useful, especially when it's a Resto Druid. That makes it so that you can guarantee, you know, Mistweaver, Resto Druid mobility, kind of about the same. So I think it's a good idea from them. And now again, see another in cap leg sweep from Vinx when Fresca goes for his leg sweep, and I think that both of those being lined up is really important.
Yeah, and actually one thing I'd really like to see from Volchok is he's sometimes making it a little bit too easy to get these in caps. Like, of course, the in cap, especially from the Mistweaver, is not on the max 40 range. I believe it's 30 or 20. So it means that if you are the Restoration Druid, if you can stand that 40-yard range, you can make it really hard for the enemy team to land those. And like, obviously, as you see the Windwalker or Mistweaver pushing in, you just run slightly further away. But he's really like enabling unhandsome men to get these opportunities, I feel like. And Vinx especially has been utilizing his abilities super well. You see him going back to the pillar. Now that he has his Way of the Crane, he pushes in once again, and his entire team are aligned here. We have the Bloodlust coming out, good amount of damage from Iroh, but no crowd control and Volchok on this occasion. Should just be able to heal through it. We see Fresca dropping a little bit low. Does have that touch of Karma, so should be able to survive, but he's taking a lot of damage right now. Actually has to trade.
Yeah, he is, and that's on that touch of death. So that is going to make that a bigger touch of death, but still. And you know why I think he's doing? He's actually going to die. He's actually dead.
He's actually dead. I can't believe it. I was like thinking about it. I was like, I went quiet for a second. I was like watching as he did the touch of death and the touch of Karma. That's a big touch of death, and it chunked him. Volchok had the Iron Bark there. I'm not sure if he had it available just in time. Maybe it came up just after he died.
They actually held on. They held on to it. I don't think they expected it to be that high.
It was a big,
I was in the middle.
That was a 30% chunk.
that was a big one.
There you go.
What I was going to say
can't call it either way or another.
Yeah, I know, that's crazy. What I was going to say was, I think the reason he's in the in-cap range is he's been before in the previous games, he's been cloning Vinx so much, right? He's been in clone range. So before, Volchok was actually the one that was being the aggressive healer, but now Vinx is kind of realizing that he needs to line up those in-cap sweeps better, and that's how he's getting the punish. Because before he was kind of using it randomly, like we said, and now they're all at coordinated times, and the idea is that when he uses it at the right time, he covers it with his Windwalker getting a leg sweep too. Then this means that you just have these super scary goes, and now it makes it so that Volchok never really has the window to even get clones in general, even when it's the smaller in-caps, just because they're pressured more in those initial bursts that any weaker go is now scarier for them.
Right. I mean, I just can't believe it, right? Like, we talk about Gronks being so strong, like 2-0 up in the series. Now suddenly we're tied 2 apiece in a best-of-7 series. So the next 3 games will decide it. We're going to head there. It looks like Tiger's Peak is going to be the next map choice, of course, coming out of Gronks, who did just lose that. I'm expecting both to look in the same compositions, but it could be something where Gronks now look at 2 losses in a row and say, hey, maybe we should be swapping it up, because they do have a lot of compositions to their utility, right? Perhaps they swap out the Restoration Druid for a Resto Shaman. I don't really see that into this composition since it's so cleave heavy, but I do think that they potentially have the opportunity to swap out some of their classes, because I mean, into the Windwalker Enhance especially, like Shadow Priests and Warlocks I mean, with a Resto Druid, yes, but with a Restoration Shaman, they won't get locked down as much as with a Warrior. So maybe there's some potential there, but at the same time, you're playing against a Mistweaver Monk. It's really hard to bring out one of those casters.
I also think, though, maybe Volchok is just going to adapt his play, and he might just play back, like you were saying, instead of being in that. Yeah. Because really what happened there was he was consistently punishing Vinx in a way for most of the games. It almost gets to the point that it's like autopilot, right? You're not really thinking about it. Like, you stop being conscious of trying to max range him because you were in a position that you were able to punish him. Now he probably realizes, okay, I actually have to avoid being in cap now. And basically, if he doesn't want it to happen, it's not going to happen.
Yep, but it looks like we are going to have the same compositions once again. We'll have to see if Volchok does go for that max ranging strategies against these 2 monks, or what it is that Gronks are going to have to do, because the momentum's definitely swinging against the Nux once again on that Warrior, deciding not to bring out the Rogue. Maybe Outlaw Rogue could be an option, but again, against these 2 monks, it's very hard to find the opportunities, especially with all these trinkets on their side. Now, we're going to see... Yeah, I like Outlaw, but I always like Outlaw. What can I say? I've seen too much wise to not like Outlaw. But if they're sticking with this Thunder Cleave, of course, you got Lux on the Warrior. They've been doing a ton of damage, right? They've killed Goon in the majority of the games they've played this matchup. because Fresca's been quite slippery, of course, on their Windwalker Monk. What do you think they have to do better defensively so that they can actually survive long enough to get that win condition?
I really do think it's what we were just saying, Adrian, where we just want to make sure that Volchok is being extra careful to avoiding getting incapped. And what I would like to see is, because Iroh and Nux, they're the kill targets, I want to see them also help Volchok with that and try to drag the DPS 40 yards away. And what they can do with this is, because Vinx is way the crane, they can kind of force him in a situation where Vinx actually has to get away to run at the DPS so he can heal with his way of the crane. Or if he wants to heal off of Volchok with his way of the crane, then they can actually bring the DPS out of range of the healing from the way of the crane. And both of those strategies, I think, will work out better. It just needs to be their positioning must be spread out more. I think that's the main goal.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they play it, because obviously this is a slightly bigger map, and that comes down to the fact that this is now really the last big map in the pool, right? Like, you've played Tolby already, you've played Asher Means, they have to.
This is a big go right now. This is every cooldown being committed.
A bit of damage. It really is everything. There's the Bloodlust, the Doom Winds, the Touch of Death. Looks like the Iron Bark is down, but the Astral Shift should be enough to keep Iroh alive. They really need to get some heals going, though. Volchok, of course, not in crowd control right now, should be able to get some going, stabilize Iroh. And that was a huge commitment, actually, from Unhandsome Men, who now will struggle without those offensive cooldowns.
Yeah, they put in everything into that go. They used absolutely everything. That Touch of Death didn't get a huge chunk on him just because of the wall being used from Iroh. You know, just like how Lust double dips the damage essentially of a Touch of Death, having a damage reduction on a Touch of Death, that means that you kind of not only reduce the final part of its damage, but also the damage that adds up into the Touch of Death in general, just by having that wall up. So that's why you'll see that, even if they're getting low through the wall, the Touch of Death itself still is going to be weaker. And now we have a double leg sweep coming out here, and they're getting a lot of damage here with the Storm Earth and Fire onto Iroh. They have an Iron Bark available. They have to use that very low HP, 20%. They put the Disarm onto Fresca, getting some good peels, but now there's that DR incap onto Volchok, still trying to help Iroh recover. I think he will. They don't have the Warrior to execute him, but this is just so much scary pressure to deal with. And now the Doom Winds and Lust are back up. They could just go for another go, and if they get the incap leg sweep, that's going to force Volchok's trinket. But Volchok doing a great job getting a beautiful clone onto Goonbag, and this is going to delay this setup, and I think getting a setup on time at that moment, that would have ended the game for them.
Yeah, that was a really clutch Cyclone. It's not something that you have the presence of mind to do if you're not an average Drake, but of course we got Volchok on the map, and that was a beautiful one. It now denies the Stormwinds for a little bit, and that means that they do have the Astral Shift in return for it, but it might not be enough. We see triple Voodoo Totem or Hex Totem coming out of Iroh, just desperately trying to keep himself alive. And you have to have a little look at the counter pressure opportunities for Gronks as well, because if they do survive this, which is looking harder and harder, they don't have any trinkets on the other side. Goon dropping low now. Here comes the full bash onto Vinx. They can follow this up with the Cyclone. They will win the game here, potentially. Goon dropping low, straight out Astral Shift, getting so low. They force out the Life Cocoon as well. Cyclone just a little bit too late, but Fresca also, without Touch of Karma, needs to be careful. They're kiting away at this moment in time. Gronk's looking aggressive, but they need to be careful as well. They do have the trinkets, but they do not have the Astral Shift. And
Touch of Death is back up, though. They have to use the Karma. You know what? I think he wanted to Touch of Death at that point, too, but he actually just got Earthshock Sun during it, so I think he got peeled and hesitate. You know, it's that moment where if you see a lot of damage coming to you, you might use them both at the same time, but if you get CC'd, you're just going to give it up, right?
Yeah, they didn't have too much going for them offensively there. I mean, it's one of those things we talked about, right? Like, you can pop your one offensive, but this is what you want.
This is the all-in right here.
Everything available. But they get the Iron Bark once again, preemptively by Volchok. He trinkets anyway, so that's a good win there coming out of Unhandsome Men. They forced that big cooldown. And I mean, they have another great opportunity here, right? Nux also doesn't have his trinket. They could do a swap over to him potentially, but Iroh, once again, that was a big commitment from Unhandsome Men. They did force a fair bit, but they have to now make something happen without those offensive cooldowns. Otherwise, the rotation is going to work well for Gronks.
Well, I think what they're going to do is that if they just use less on cooldown, Doomwind's less on cooldown, they are going to be able to get pressure here and just get those cooldowns. I think eventually as the game goes into dampening, they're going to be able to brute force their way through these defensive cooldowns versus all these damage reductions. And I think that's how it's going to work out. Look, they just use the Storm Earth and Fire. There's no Doomwinds or Lust, and they're able to get the wall from Iroh. The game just gets so much harder for them to recover, but now they're getting that kind of pressure onto Fresca, forcing him to use his wall there, forcing him to port away. Stormwall goes down to Fresca, forcing him to use his trinket right there. That could be costly for them. He has to use it defensively, but now he won't also have a trinket for that offensive go that's coming up very soon. They have the Lust back up. They want to go for that setup here. And I really like that they also have been getting more into cap stun totems in this game than not just the in-cap into leg sweeps, because if you can get both of those almost every single go, that's when things are just beautiful for you as the enhanced Windwalker composition.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're talking about, these perfect setups, right? Getting all the crowd control, getting all those setups, trying to deny also the peels coming out of the other team members of the Thunder Cleave. We see Goon dropping a little bit low right now, but not Vinx, of course, does have his Way of the Crane active, trying to get some counter pressure here, topping off his team. In the meanwhile, Iroh, the target of choice right now, but again, not too much doing right now, not too many offensive clones being used. Doom wins and Bloodlust, but nothing coming out of Fresca in particular, who is, of course, buying a bit of time for that touch of death, available in about 15 seconds this moment in time. But Volchok without his trinket is actually going to match up pretty well. I don't think they have too many opportunities on him. And once again, Grunk's looking pretty good in this one. Vinx dropping lower mana, has to use his PvP trinket there as well. Goon also trading out the Astral Shift. Big opening for Grunks potentially in a few minutes here. Or a few
Yeah, Fima. I think that it's going to be really scary. They are going for this touch of death go that doesn't have everything committed into it. So this is a little bit interesting. They're kind of swapping it up here, kind of going for maybe a lazier go now that we're in dampening and just trying to keep forcing cooldowns here. They use the karma as well. Not really getting too much. They just forced the Iron Bark from Volchok, but now they have both trinkets up, so I think things are looking a little bit better for the Gronks here. They have a bit more stability, but now they're just still low. They're still going for the go, I guess. They go for the half leg sweep on him, force the wall from Iroh the last second. I mean, that was what looked like a sloppy touch of death go. Ended up being continued on, and they force pressure with just that half leg sweep go. And I actually think that's something that can happen sometimes to people versus Windwalker Enhanced. They kind of let them get too much uptime right after a big cooldown is used. If they don't force anything with it, you just kind of sit there and take too much damage, and something gets forced like that. And now here we get the leg sweep, forces the trinket into half fist of fury. He could go down to death.
Oh no, Volchok had the PvP trinket, but that's like you were saying. They had the kind of sloppy go, but with the combination of dampening and then the remaining cooldowns, especially coming out of Goon there, he was able to pop the Bloodlust, pop those Doom Winds, and there was one more touch of Storm Earth and Fire from Fresca. Just so much damage coming out. And I mean, because they had that kind of sloppy go, but they were still able to force the damage reduction cooldowns, they're able to get the kill on Iroh, and that's 3 in a row for this team who are looking.
Right.
I mean, we didn't even count these guys. Like, if you gave us our top 3, we were going to say Grunks, we were going to say Unitas, we were going to say Big Dog, of course.
Yeah.
But now, I don't know, you're one game away. Do you start changing your opinion? I think you're pretty damn well, dude. This team just looking so good. And that's 3-0 or 3-2, having been 2-0 down in this grand final, right? Like, they're one game away from securing the 180 points and looking so good to qualify to that live event.
I really think what was good for them was actually having that go be bad, because first of all, the entire game they went for goes like they went for these goes that were I mean, I think it opens our opportunities. It seems weird, but every single go they've put everything together, they went clean, and they just try to brute force, right? Then they get to a point in the game that they have one sloppy touch of death, but you get overconfident. You see a cooldown being wasted versus a composition like that. I've done it. I've seen plenty of people do it too. And no matter like how experienced you are, it'll happen. You kind of will think, okay, well, they use their touch of death, whatever, and you survive that go. And you kind of think, okay, well, I can tank a little bit of damage. And then, oh, well, they actually have CC for his healer. And because he ended up taking that much damage, they put their healer really behind. They were forced to use the wall on a go that didn't have anything. And then they just cleanly secured the game. And that was just a beautiful play by the enhanced meta. I think it worked out perfectly. It was almost like a bait with that bad touch of death go.
As you were saying, I think you got it right. They're just playing so good. I mean, they're one of these teams that they've got slightly oddball compositions. I mean, enhancement Windwalker, like you say, it's one of these comps you kind of see a few times, but it's strong into some comps and weaker into others. For example, I think if they met I was actually quite surprised to see them beat the Jungle Cleave in the upper bracket. We actually didn't get to see that series, although I would have loved to. But it was slightly surprising for me, because that's where you'd expect the jungle to excel. Of course, like enhancement and Windwalker Monks are quite squishy, but now we're in the situation where they've beaten those teams, they've beaten those big oppositions, and I mean, they've got the prop paladin as well, prop warrior, which is
I think that's what they played into the jungle instead of the Windwalker Enhanced. I think they played that.
So maybe it is like that little bit of comp diversity that's helping them through as well. But I mean, they're one game away from winning the entirety of this ANZ Cup. And if they win this one, of course, like that's 180 points. That's, 100. That's 60 more than second place will have. It puts them in a great position to, even if they came third or fourth in a few more cups, just qualify for that event, like in a very prime position. But that is the big maps out the way now. So we'll have to see where we're taken. Looks like Dalaran series is going to be the map choice from Gronk. So you think that's going to play into the hands of this mini cleave even more, to be honest?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually think it's good for them. I feel like they're going to be able to get these goes that they really wanted more. Voltron still isn't going to be able to get too many clones out on this map. It's going to be really hard, especially with the amount of pressure that's been on this game. And it'll be easier for Voltron to get CC'd. He still won't be able to get that max ranging of those in-caps. And he was doing it that game. He actually was having his team being really spread out that game. And they were being more creative. When Vink's going to go there, they were getting maybe in-caps into cap totems. They did that a couple times, but they made sure that the warrior was cross with them because they're killing those caps so fast. They're preventing those from happening. But sometimes they're being able to get the cover. And when they do that, it really hurts Volchok a lot.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, there's no doubt in that, especially when he's playing like quite close, and even when he's playing far. I actually feel like sometimes, at the start I was thinking, well, maybe he can just max range a little bit more, but he's actually getting some really impactful cyclones when he does push in. He just needs to be careful which times he can and cannot afford to do that. But ultimately, we're 3-2, unhandsome men of all teams, one game away from qualifying, from winning this entire cup and all but qualifying and being in very prime position for victory in the entirety of the ANZ region. But Fresca, Goon, and Notvinks have got one more challenge ahead of them. They have to beat Volchok, Iro, and Nooks one more time. And of course, they have 2 maps to do it on. We'll have to see if they can. Because, I mean, Volchok, Iro, and Nooks, we've been bigging them up this entire tournament. I know there's a ton of Gronks fans who are watching the stream right now. A lot of people expecting them to be the team to beat in this tournament. But we'll have to see if Unhandsome Man can finish the job.
Yep. I mean, at least one thing we know. Vinks is not winning.
That's true.
Yeah.
we as analysts can dictate that.
Yep.
It's definitely true, but I mean,
I think you're
one thing we'll know as well is the Shaman's going to win. That's very true.
A Shaman, okay.
An Elemental and Enhancement. But we'll have to see which one. Iro, once again, going to be that slippery sausage on the Elemental Shaman, just kiting away, doing everything he can, getting a fair bit of damage out as well.
Oh my god, they're chunking him so hard, but now he's going to karma, and he's going to go for the touch of death. They actually hold on to the coolants. They force the double skin, or they forced both trinkets from Nuxie, from Iro, and the Iron Bark from Volchok, and they didn't commit with touch of death or lust or doomwiz. I mean, that's so scary. That was just Storm Earth and Fire, one charge, and the touch of karma, just getting that extra damage onto them because they really chunked Fresca down. They pretty much broke that karma. That was very, very scary. But now there's a Stormbolt onto Fresca. He has nothing left. I mean, they need to burst him down. They forced the life cocoon from him. I think that he's a great kill target for them. He's much better to go on than the enhancement trauma. But now here's the commit. This is everything being used, forcing Volchok's trinket. He's trying to do what he can, pops his artifact, does top up Iro, but they might be able to go through this. I mean, they're doing what they can to peel, and they do stop the go from finishing him off, but it is still very, very scary. I mean, we've seen how this can play out. Volchok has to be on his toes in this game.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, he has to do everything right. And now we see Fresco, of course. He did have to use his touch of karma there. Gronks came out the gates flying. This is really a game on a knife's edge. And of course, Gronks don't have any lifelines left. They've lost 3 in a row now. If they lose this one, they will lose the grand finals, which of course is not the place they want to be in. We see Stormbolt onto Fresco. He can't glide away, but the way of the crane coming out of Notvinks should be enough to keep him alive. Hex Totem.
Fresco's gonna die.
That. They might get the execute DR clone on the trinket.
He ports away.
He's gonna die. Oh my god.
He gets left too. He's kiting his heart. He's trying his best to live, and he is going to survive. But no, there's that full dash onto Notvinks. I mean, he's trying to do what he can. The karma comes up in 2 seconds.
Oh, but he's going to get it off.
Fresca's going to use that karma now, but he gets cloned on it. Beautiful play from Volchok. Shuts him down so hard by doing this. And you know what? I think that they've made a great decision by just committing onto Fresca. Windwalker Monks, I think are an undervalued target to go on. I think that they can die really easily. And they also did recently get a defensive nerf. That is the thing that people don't really think of too much. Their defensives did get nerfed, and they were already kind of squishy. So this just means you have more opportunities to kill, and they're forcing the human trinket. I mean, there's an opportunity to get the kill here. There's the Lust, though, trying to get some extra pressure onto Iro and Volchok here. And Volchok is being Volchok can come down. He has Iron Bark in 2 seconds, uses the Bark skin instead, tries to hold onto the Iron Bark to use onto Iro, and just try not to use every cooldown, but he's being pressured so hard, has his artifact, he's holding onto it, he knows that he could be able to survive, but Fresca caught into the full bash. They could kill him. He's so low. 2% HP. Fresca goes down.
Oh my goodness, and we're going to game 7. Gronk's able to pull it back with some big damage there, big setups as well. Nuxie with the triple intimidating shot, that fear, putting fear into the eyes of Fresco, who did end up falling at the end of that one. And this was a different Gronks to what we saw in the other games. This was,
yes,
they went from like trying to survive to all-inning on Fresca. They didn't care about the karma. They were like, well, I mean, maybe you're going to karma me get a ton of damage. We just have to bottle that. We have to be strong and survive it. And honestly, great game coming out of them. Huge offensive pressure. And I don't even know what maps we have left, Dilly. What do we have? We must have, I think it's Ruins and Blades, right?
It's Ruins and Blades, yeah. And
Ruins and Blades. And
if it's Ruins,
choose
you
your poison. I will make my panic on Ruins.
Do they pick? Maybe they pick. Wait, maybe they pick Blaze Edge though, because 2 monks. How hard is it going to be? It's going to be so hard. The only thing is though, if they pick Blaze Edge, now the Thunderstorm is really annoying for Goon to deal with as well, and I think that's really important to watch out for them. I actually like the monk choice though. That's something that I've seen teams like RMP start doing into that kind of composition. I've done it as jungle, where sometimes the enhancement shaman can actually make himself live a very long time because of the peels from all of his teammates and run around. But if you actually focus on the Windwalker, it's kind of like the warrior thing we were talking about, where he's the one who's usually peeling, right? So if you go on him, even though he has karma, even though he's so slippery, if you do catch him in a stun, he actually is probably the best person to burst down. And we saw it the entire game. He was pressured, and it made it so that he really couldn't take full control of the game like he was before, because the Windwalker is the leader. And if you make your leader afraid to make plays and you kind of delay those setups because he has to be scared, that's where you open up more win conditions like Gronks did. And that was beautifully executed from them.
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, I think the moral of the story here is that Gronks can do anything when they put their mind to it. The game has been tied up 3-3. We're going to map 7. If you've got anyone watching, like, tell your friends, tell your family, like, if you've been with us for a couple of hours, this is the climax. This is to decide who wins the first ANZ Cup of 2018. So anyone might as well hop in now just to see the outcome. Gronks are 1 game away from taking it, but Unhandsome Men want to play spoiler. They get to choose the poison. Is it going to be Ruins of Lordaeron or Blades Edge Arena, the final 2 in our pool? I mean, it's funny to think, like, if you go back a couple of expansions, we wouldn't have even had 8 maps for this game 7. They could have chosen anything in the pool. But now, of course, we have those extra maps, Black Record. So it's going to be interesting to see where we head with this one. Completely different maps as well. Ruins of Lordaeron, basically no pillars, tiny map. Going to be very hard for them to kite away. Volchok's going to have to, honestly, like, Volchok will have the opportunity to play quite large, you know, he can play in the open space at max range. But on the flip side, you got Blades Edge Arena, which is so awkward to play as a healer because you get kind of caught up by those pillars quite often. And it's an open map again, but if you get caught playing on top of everyone, it can be really hard to position yourself effectively.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't feel confident picking Blaze Edge. I feel like that makes the matchup such a coin toss.
That's the thing. How do you fancy your chances at this point? Gronk's looking pretty damn strong.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
it's gonna be a great game. I mean,
if they're unhandsome, right? They're probably not lucky to begin with, right? So maybe they're not gonna feel.
It's what's on the inside that matters. Just saying.
Well, I'm just saying they're not. That's luck. You know what? I'm not gonna get into this, Adrian. But what about Ring of Valor?
You don't think it's time for a big philosophical debate as we are ready to dive into Game 7 of the Grand Finals, ANZ Cup 1? Really?
Ruins.
It is Ruins.
Okay, do the honors.
One of these teams will be dropping down to their final resting place on this map. They will be in the Tombstone. They will, of course, still get second place, which isn't bad, but no one wants to be second place. It's just first of the losers. We want the champion. We want Gronks or Unhandsome Men to be crowned the champion of this first cup, and we will find out who it is in somewhere between 2 and 10 minutes, because honestly, I have no idea. This matchup is so volatile. It could be absolutely anything. It's going to come down to Fresco, of course. We're watching his cooldowns, also how Ira is able to survive. It's going to be a crazy game, and Dilly, we've made it all this way. Who do you think is going to take it? Do you have any predictions, or am I
I don't have a coin.
Too much? You'd have a coin.
Coinflip.com.
I got to go with Gronks. I said Gronks at the start. They had a crazy game 6. If they can pull off that offense one more time onto Fresca, especially on this small map, he might have chosen his own poison. It could be a difficult one for him, but of course, they also have the offensive composition. It's going to be such a cutthroat game. So we see Volchok, Ira, and Nuxie staying on their side of the map. They don't want to be the ones pushing in. Goon, of course, actually gets cycloned out of stealth. So nice opener for Volchok. Sets his team up for success early on.
Yeah, I actually the thing that he did by getting these clones, so he has to watch out for it. Is now they're all on DR, so he's not really going to be able to use that warrior fear during those cooldowns, right? If they go for a burst window right now, that's the opportunity for them to not get peeled too much, and they're only going to have to worry about damage mitigation, right? Because there's no warrior fear that can be used, and as they kind of delay their go, they're sort of making it so that they won't actually have that opportunity. But I think Volchok realized that, and he went with that pre-bark here because even without them using those defensives, I think he knows that that was the window for them to go offensive. But now there is that touch of death, and it's going to get Stormbolted from Fresca. He's going to hold on to his trinket. He uses the Storm Earth and Fire. Bloodlust gets used, but they do a great job peeling this setup from Gronks. But I mean, still, even peeling that much, I think that they know they have to be very careful in this game. And Fresca has been holding on to his trinkets a lot more. I think he realizes that he's going to have to give up some kill opportunities in order to not die like he did in the previous games. But I think that's exactly what Gronks wanted to do to Fresca. And like we saw there, they could have both trinketed defensively. They could have tried to go for the kill there, but they decided not to go for it just because they knew that they died in the other game. And now there's that Stormbolt onto Fresca. He trinkets, gets feared on the trinket, and there's that Hex Totem being used. And this is just making it so difficult for Fresca to survive. He is going to have to use that Touch of Karma, puts it onto Iroh, tries to get that extra damage onto him. Now they're going to use that clone from Volchok to prevent some of that damage from the Karma. Volchok looking to dispel the dot as well. This is a really good opportunity for them to try to recover. But I mean, they know that Fresca now is that kill target. He does not have any trinkets left, has no human racial for about 30 seconds. So they have an opportunity to kill him. And because they know this, they actually used the cocoon during the Lexi go. Maybe a little bit questionable. Now the pressure's actually on to Goodback here. He's in that Stormbolt. There's that full bash. This could be it.
This could be it.
20%.
This could be the finals.
He's not gonna die. He isn't. He has that wall.
The Astral Shift just in time. And the way of the crane as well coming in from Vinx. It was a very close call, but still looking great for Gronks. They have the trinket. No Ironbark actually available though, so they need to be a little bit careful with this next setup as Volchok.
Oh, scary setup though. Getting a lot of damage onto Iroh, who has no damage mitigation without Lust there, holding on to the Doom Winds. Again, a little bit interesting. I think that sometimes is happening because he's getting disarmed when he pops the Lust, and then he's just not popping the Doom Winds. He's just deciding to hold on to it, but still feel like maybe he could use it a little bit later into that go. And I kind of like what Gronks has done with that last game. They have made Unhandsome Men scared. They actually are not playing the same way now. It's almost like they've thrown them off. They were on such a roll, and by doing what they did the last game, they kind of confused them. And they're like, well, how do we even react now? And I think this is just where the experience from Gronks is going to maybe shine, is they seem like they're a little bit more confident with this game, but that doesn't cut them out. There's a Touch of Death and Karma being used at the same time. A lot of damage going out to Iroh. They're using the double skin. They're using the skin and the wall overlap, but still there's so much damage coming out, and they're swapping to Volchok a little bit, getting him to about 50% HP, have him using the skin right there, and they have the way the crane up. Pressure goes out onto Iroh and onto Volchok. Incap goes out onto Volchok, not going to be able to top Iroh. There's a DR Incap in the Fist of Fury onto Iroh, still not being able to force him down. And I mean, both these are going to recover here, but Fresca being pressured has no Karma. There's the shear onto Vinx. He has no way to crane. Fresca's super low. He has that wall, but I mean, he has to do what he can to survive. He's in so much trouble at this moment.
Yeah, it looks like we might hit a brief second of respite, but every time we look like that, it seems building up for that next defensive push. Iroh does not have the Astral Shift. Volchok does not have the Ironbark. Big defensive cooldowns not available, and of course we see the Bloodlust available, and Goon could be an option, but we do have trinkets available on both sides, so both of them do have the options to survive at this moment in time. Fresca now caught up once again in that Ironbark. We see the Bloodlust coming out. Do they have the connection? Crowd control of Volchok, but we do see Iroh hiding Ray behind the pillar, doing such a great job as he's been doing all tournament long to stay alive. It's really all on him. He cannot afford to die. This is game 7. They lose this game, they will lose the points, they will lose the pride of winning this first cup. And Vinx now looking in, pops the way of the train, trying to get aggressive, and Touch of Karma is coming up for Fresca. Things are looking better and better for the Unhandsome Men.
Yes, it absolutely is. And I like that Fresca is being much more careful with his trinkets. He is knowing not to trinket so aggressively, but they're making a swap onto Vinx. He has no way to crane. He's going to be low. Getting that pressure onto him, I think that's also something good to do. I think monks are just, sometimes people are so afraid to hit them, but you can scare them a lot, especially when they don't have these way the cranes. You can punish them for being aggressive, but people don't think of it. And now there's that Lexi offensive go. Doomwind pops out. It's a disarm from Nuxie onto that in that small little gap, and Volchok is just going to sit in that leg sweep, going to be able to keep his team alive with his hots, and Fresca is just, going to get focused a little bit, but he should be able to recover here.
Yeah, he should be able to. Of course, he has this friendly regens. Volshock should be able to stabilize as well. We have Goon now dropping low. Doesn't have that astral shift. And Vinx, of course, also dropping low on mana of all things. There we see the trinket or the human racial into that life cocoon to keep Goon alive. Fresca could be a great opening now. Does have that touch of karma, but they'd love to force that once again.
They have karma. Well. They have karma. They have trinket. I think there's one last all in, right? I feel like they have one opportunity to completely all in. Then Vinx is falling so far behind at this point. I think they just need to go for it. There's the touch of death. There is the bloodlust. There's the storm, earth, and fire. They're going all in onto Iroh. He doesn't get that pre-wall. They have so much damage going out here. They're trying to chunk him as much as possible, but he holds onto the wall through the lust and the touch of death. Such a greedy play, but it pays off for him, and this is going to put them so far behind. They have the damage going out onto Iroh, getting a nice kick onto him, and he still holds onto his wall. Volchok has the iron bar, and now with the unhandsome men, it seems like the tables have turned onto them.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, we saw Vinx porting away there, but he ported away from his own team to avoid that cyclone. Now the bash, fear as well, trinket coming out, everything being used by this team. They got to be a little careful, Gronks. If they're using tools like intimidating shout offensively, they won't have them defensively, but they taste the victory. They taste the grand finals. Goon dropping into execute range. He's so low. Astral shift comes out in the nick of time. Should be enough to keep him alive. Vinx dropping low, 10% dampening on the board as Iroh now dropping into play. He's in a little bit of trouble. We see capacity still into Volshock. Do have trinkets available. Astral shift respectfully popped on those doom wins, as we do see Wave the Crane also committed by Vinx. After this Wave the Crane, though, they basically have no mana, they have no healing cooldowns, and Goon does not have his astral shift. This could easily be the game as the full cyclone comes out from Volchok.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the pressure is coming out here, but I feel like Gronk should be able to live as long as Iroh doesn't die here. I mean, there's so much damage coming out onto him. Goonback's also very low. Is it executed? He's dead!
Executed!
Gronk wins!
Gronks take the game, they take the map, they take the series, and most importantly, they take the tournament 4-3 against an incredible unhandsome men. But you got to give huge props to both these teams. They put on an incredible show. Gronks going 2-up in this final one. 3 wins in a row, though. They were able to come back from that, turn the series on its head once again. And I mean, wow.
that was an awesome series. And the main thing that I started to realize that I actually think Nux was confident with that fear. He used it right there, got the trinket, but he used it 30 seconds after they used the touch. And remember, intimidating shout is a 1 minute 30 cooldown. So he actually would have had his next fear. Fresca would have had touch of death, so that would have been the all in. But also Vinx would have had no trinket. So if they try to completely all in that go, I think that would have been perfectly lined up, and he would have been able to peel both of them at the same time. And if he had not gone for that fear, I think he would have gotten the trinket at that point. And I think that almost secured their victory later on if they did not win there.
Yep. Well, there you have it, gentlemen and ladies. We have Gronks as our champion of ANZ Cup #1. Of course, the Wiz K Slayers from 2016 back and making a statement in this first cup. Maybe that's a little unfair, but you know what I mean. Like, these guys playing well. And of course, the Shaman coming in at the end as well for them. He just had such a great tournament. I think Iroh is definitely going to be a guy to watch in these next ones. And hey, I mean, thank you, of course, Dilly, for waking up early to join us. But I hope you enjoyed these games, because they were pretty damn good. We had some crazy close ones.
Yep.